Hey everyone, welcome back to the Free Life channel. My name is Kyle, and today I would like to talk to you about three different things. First, I would like to share with you the story about how I've chosen the name Free Life as the title of my channel. Second, I would like to begin diving into Brene Brown's book. We'll talk about the first chapter of her book titled Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone. And lastly, I'll share with you some lessons that I've taken from the book and how I plan to apply these lessons to my everyday life. So before we get too deep into things, go ahead and hit the like button. I would really appreciate an early thumbs up and a subscription to the channel, as your support helps my messages reach a larger audience through this platform. So, the story of Free Life. How did we get here? So, in 2015, I was traveling to London, and as I was vacationing there, I was alone, and I went to my hostel, and I met this girl with dark hair, and I asked to sit at the table with her to have breakfast at the hostel, just because all the other tables were full. And so I'm having breakfast, sitting in silence across from this girl that I've never met before, and I asked her a question. What is your name? And she responded to me in a very soft toned voice, and she said, Kati. I said, okay, nice to meet you. What are you doing here? And she, through story, come to find out that she was from Greece. And so maybe you guys remember that in 2015, Greece was going through a financial crisis, and the people of Greece were unable to access their money through banks or ATMs. They were limited to how much of their own money they could obtain in one given day. And so throughout this situation and the crisis, Kati had decided to take a leap of faith to find courage and travel to the United Kingdom in search of a job. So she found a job as a nurse, and her goal was to send money back to her family every month to help out during the financial crisis. And so through my 3-day weekend trip to London, I walked around the city with her, getting her visa paperwork and helping her establish herself amongst an English-speaking culture. And she became a really wonderful friend of mine. And so I was sitting at the train, getting ready to go back to the airport to fly back to my home, in which I was living in Italy at the time. And so I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, what did I think about my trip? And I started to think, and I looked and I saw a tattoo shop, and I said to myself, hey, a tattoo, I've never had one of those. I would love to get a tattoo. And so I had $80 in my pocket, and I got my first tattoo. And it's right here on my arm, but it's a bit cold here in Las Vegas, and so who would have thought it'd be cold here in Vegas? No, I joke. But yeah, so anyway, I got a tattoo, and it says Tharos, which is Greek for courage. And little did I know, back in 2015, courage would be the thing that I talk about the most on a platform that the whole world can see. It's funny how things align. Okay, so I leave London and I fly back to Italy, and a couple weeks go by, and I go to one of my favorite places in Italy for rock climbing. I'm an avid rock climber. I love to rock climb. And I'm at the local cafe getting my coffee before spending a day at the rocks with my friends, and I see a sticker, and it says Free Life on it, and it has a picture, a small guy climbing a rock. And actually, I have it right here. I bought this in 2015, so it's a bit old and it's a bit worn, but you can see this is kind of how I have titled my channel. So I bought this sticker and put it on my journal, and I used this journal from 2015 to 2017, writing about my life and my experiences living in a foreign country. And so I must have forgotten about this journal at some point and taken it to my parents' house at one point when I went to go visit them. Well, just recently, a couple weeks ago, I was at my parents' house, and I found this old journal, and I started to read through it, and I was kind of laughing at myself, but laughing at myself in a way of understanding that I'm in the same exact place today as I was 4 years ago. I started to read, and I was saying, wow, I really experienced the same emotional pain and the same negative thought patterns that I was experiencing from 2015 to 2017 as I am today in 2021. And so I decided to rip out the pages of my past. And maybe this is a bit symbolic, maybe it's going a little bit spiritual, but that's okay. And so if you see my binder here, it has a nice big scar. And so this is symbolic for me to understand that there's a scar about who I was. I had a past, and the scar, just because there's a scar, doesn't mean that you need to live in the past. You can let go of the past and you can grow. And so, as you can see, I have a couple words on the first few pages, but the rest of the book is blank. And my goal is to fill this book, this journal, with nothing but positive, healing, self-growth, and motivation for myself to grow. And I hope to be able to, through this journal and through writing and through these videos, to help you grow as well. So now let's move on to Brené Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness. So her first chapter is titled Everywhere and Nowhere. And in the book it talks about, who am I? Who are you? Who am I to feel credible enough to share self-healing advice with a platform that could potentially reach the whole world? Well, who am I? I am a person seeking self-acceptance and healing, okay? And so through these videos, as I mentioned yesterday, I want to grow, and I want to encourage growth in a healthier world for myself and for you. And so in this book, in the chapter, she talks about how we as a species, as humanity, we live in fear. We're afraid of conflict. We're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of standing up for ourselves. And I felt like this book was slapping me in the face. I resonated so much with that. You know, growing up, I always felt that I never belonged to my family because I was always playing sports. I was never at home, and I felt misunderstood by my parents. And I thought it was interesting because in this chapter, Brené Brown, she talks about the idea that children, when they're alone and they don't feel understood and they don't feel like they belong somewhere, they tell themselves stories in their head. A child in silence is a very dangerous thing. And it's because they tell themselves stories of being unworthy of love and that they're alone. And that when a child tells themselves these stories over and over again, they take this thinking pattern with them into adulthood. And I think that that's a lot of the things that we see in the world today. And it's something that I see inside of myself 100%. And so I was living in constant pain, and I never did anything to heal that. I just buried the pain. I denied the pain. And that's also something that this chapter talked about. And when one denies pain or buries the pain, it's almost 100% certain that you will project that pain onto others, and you will continue to spread pain around the world. And until you face the fears of feeling that pain within yourself, you will continue to live a fearful life and a painful life, and that will only cause more negative energy around you. And so there's a quote inside of this book, and in Brené Brown, she says that when she was a child, she buried pain inside of herself because she felt that she didn't belong. And she said she was deteriorating faster than she could lower her standards. So as children, we look for ways to fit in. We just want to belong to a group of people. But what we fail to recognize is that belonging means we must belong to ourselves, and we must accept ourselves before we can belong out there inside of the world. And that's what she's talking about in terms of belonging to everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The only place we ever belong is in this moment, right now. We don't belong in the past. We don't belong in the future. We only belong right now, in this moment. And so thank you for belonging in this moment with me. So, how can we find ways to belong to ourselves? Well, Brené Brown, she goes on to share that it's important to start talking, to share your stories with people that will listen, with people you care about, and to write yourself permission slips to be yourself and to accept yourself. You have to write yourself a permission slip to say it is okay to be your most authentic self. And when you belong to yourself, and when you are your most authentic self, that is when you can truly belong out there in society. So you have to find the courage to be authentic. Okay? That is extremely important. And lastly, she talks about the ideas that you need to establish guiding values and principles to live by. Not just talk about them, but actually live by these values that will guide you. Okay? And so how do I plan to apply these lessons to my life? Well, first, I'm gonna meditate. Maybe that sounds cliche, but it's true. Laying down in silence and watching my thoughts. And through that, I want to practice positive rehearsal and non-judgment of my negative thinking, okay? But to recognize that the negative thinking is not gonna get me anywhere but to more negativity. So I'm gonna practice positive rehearsal, and then I'm gonna practice belonging in this moment. And through that, I hope to build a structure for my life in which I can have a foundation. Instead of trying to build a sense of belongingness in other people, which I've done my whole life. That's why I always feel so crushed when things go wrong, because I don't belong to myself. I don't have a foundation within. And so that is what I plan to do over these next days, weeks, months, years. Who knows how long it will take until this foundation is built. Also, I'm gonna connect with my family. As I'm older now, I realize how important it is for me to connect with my family, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And also with my close friends. Living away from my friends and traveling the world, you don't get to spend so much physical time with people. But with technology nowadays, it's very easy to connect. And so that is something that I'm gonna be more certain about. Connecting with my friends and sharing my thoughts and telling them I love them and filling my life with love. That goes back to that positive rehearsal, right? To share love and to be love. And lastly, I'm going to step aside and avoid or ignore critics and negative naysayers. And I'm gonna focus on people that promote growth and that support me in my journey of self-healing and growth and becoming an adult and becoming a healthy adult, most importantly. So you can look forward to a new video tomorrow about similar topics. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to leave a comment down below. And again, I would really appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription. And as I go on, I hope to gain more confidence in these videos and have a more fluid conversation with my viewers and to share more, to be more impactful in my life and in your life. So I thank you and I wish you guys a wonderful day, and remember to always try to seek a free life, free of negative thinking, free of stress, and free to do what you want. Thank you.